Some of the content contained in this podcast may prove challenging to some listeners. Discretion is advised. Please contact a member of your local support group or a relevant and accredited support organisation if affected and help is required. Hi, and welcome to My Service, My Story, a collaborative podcast between the Warragul and Druin Gazette and the Warragul RSL. I'm Gazette journalist Nicholas Duck, and joining me here today is our special guest, Ivan Standen. Ivan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much for joining us. We'll get straight into it. Ivan, if you wanted to start just by telling us a bit about your early life, your childhood, growing up, where you went to school and all that sort of thing before you ended up serving in the army.
Yes, well, I'm a Swan Hill boy. I grew up there. I went to the Swan Hill Primary School and then on to the Swan Hill High School. We lived in a soldier settlement area. My father was a World War II veteran. After I left school, I got a job in the Commonwealth Bank, and I was there until about 19, and then I was transferred to the Canberra branch. It was a long way away, 520 miles in the old money. And in Canberra, I lived in a Commonwealth Bank hostel.
Right, that's a bit of an interesting one. What was the conditions like in there?
It was a very modern affair. All the meals were in a central part, and all the boys were over one side and all the girls were over the other side most of the time.
Right, yeah. Give or take. So you were eventually conscripted, is that correct?
Yes, I'd been in the Commonwealth Bank in Canberra for 9 months, and in the bank in the branch that I worked in, there were 3 of us that had to register for national service. The other 2 guys got their deferrals, and I'm thinking, well, where's mine? But of course, the deferral didn't come. So I don't recall any great reaction, because my father was in World War II and my grandfather was in the First War. It was more an acceptance. It's compulsory. I can't do anything about it, but I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah. Your father and your grandfather both served. Had you grown up in an environment where their service was talked about a lot? Were you aware of their history? Did you go to RSLs and stuff like that?
No, not at all. Didn't know anything about the history. It wasn't spoken of at all. I've found out a lot since, but no, at the time it wasn't dwelled on at all, and they were just getting on with their lives.
What did your father think when he learned that you'd been called up?
He was a man who would say 20 words in a week, so he really, I don't recall any reaction from him at all. So I guess he must have been thinking a few things, but no, he didn't say anything to me that has stuck.
And what about the rest of your family? How did they react?
Probably a bit stunned, but nothing I can do about it. So it's just, very pragmatic about it, I guess, and you just do it and get those 2 years over and done with, and then back on with your life as it was before.
Yeah, fair enough. So you head off to basic training at Puckapunyal, I'm assuming?
No, because I was in Canberra, I was part of the ACT New South Wales, so I've got a 2-7 number as distinct from a 3-7 number which the Victorian people had. So I was sent to Kapooka at Wagga, and that's where a lot of the regular army guys went. But of course they had a lot of national service there as well. So that was the start of the recruit training.
How did you find Kapooka? How was that?
It was pretty full on physically, but I was reasonably fit, so I don't think that worried me too much. The discipline was another thing that you had to accept, the shouting at you and so forth. But we had to make sure that we had everything neat. You know, the bed had to be just so, and your boots had to be just so under the bed, and your locker had to be set up just nicely. But I tend to have a bit of an attention to detail and neatness, so that didn't worry me. Just that it was bloody cold in July in Wagga. And I can remember one morning, I think it must have been about 7 or 7:30, we were out there and it was thick fog, but there was actually a breeze blowing at the same time, and we were doing weapons training. It's a good way to knock a bit of skin off your hands while you're doing that. But all in all, I coped pretty well with it.
Are there any particular stories that stand out from your time in basic training, or did it sort of fly by like a bit of a blur?
It was 10 weeks and it just did seem to fly by. You just got up and did it every day because you had to. And then all of a sudden we were marching out and on to the next phase.
Yeah, well, tell me a bit about that next phase.
Well, before we left recruit training, somebody came and spoke to us and said, now, which corps do you want to go into? I didn't really know much about any of the corps in the army. I knew about infantry, so I said, well, I'll go and do infantry. And whoever it was there explained to me that infantry are on a pay grade of 6 and clerks and pen pushers are on 10. So where do you want to go? So it was a bit of a no-brainer. So I went into Ordnance and then started 10 weeks there.
Right, okay. So I haven't really talked to anyone who went into Ordnance. I suppose, did you want to talk a bit about what that involves, like what someone who is in that corps would end up doing?
We went to a place called Bonegilla, which is up near Albury-Wodonga, and it was a former immigration centre where the migrants came to firstly before they were processed. So we spent, as I said, 10 weeks there, and Ordnance is really the supply part of the army, so all the supplies come through Ordnance. So we learned how to do all that and learnt the different forms, and we learned how to touch type, but that didn't last long because we didn't practice it. After the 10 weeks, we were out of there, and then I got posted to Bandiana, which is close by and is just out of Wodonga.
So on an average day-to-day, day of operations in the Ordnance Corps, what would you be doing essentially?
Well, I didn't know what they were doing in Australia. I knew what I was doing when I went overseas, but basically what we were doing, we went into Bandiana, and then it seemed that each day we'd go into this big room and sort 5x3 cards into alphabetical order. This seemed to be happening day after day. I don't know what the cards were for, I can't remember that. Eventually there was something came up on the notice board, would you like to volunteer to go to Vietnam? And I thought, well, maybe I'll get a war service loan out of it, so it's better sitting here than doing this. I'll put my name down for it. So I sort of volunteered before I was sent. There's no illusions there. You know, we were called up to go to Vietnam. They needed the people for that, so but I just volunteered before that happened.
Were you aware or much aware at all of what was actually happening in Vietnam in terms of what the conflict was all about?
No, I didn't know. It was all an unknown. I never took any notice of it before, and I don't recall taking any notice of it even after I joined the army.
Yeah. So you volunteered to go over to Vietnam then?
Yes. Yeah.
Had you ever been out of the country before?
No. I think I'd been on a plane before to Tasmania, but that was all. So, yeah, it's a big adventure.
Yeah. All right. So you volunteered to go to Vietnam and you shipped out. How old were you when you were shipped out to Vietnam?
I was 20, but before we went there, we had to go to a jungle training camp in Canungra, which is in the Gold Coast hinterland. So that was 3 weeks, and that was full on. That was really full on. So that was more of what the infantry guys would be doing, I guess. That's it. In the army, you're a soldier first, and then you work for the corps, for whichever corps you're in. So everybody in the army had to be a proper soldier. So that's what we were practising in Canungra. We got 1 day off in those 3 weeks, and they took us by bus down to the Gold Coast, and we got stuck into it. There was a few sore heads the next day when we were doing the training.
Yeah. Do you remember what you yourself were doing on your day off?
Oh, no, I can remember being there down on the Gold Coast because we all got our short haircuts and we must have really stood out. But anyway, it was a good day. It was a good break from the full-on training.
So you had to do jungle training, but you weren't necessarily going to be really out in the field that much when you went over to Vietnam.
No, but you had to know what it was about to do that, including reaction to contacts and so forth that the infantry guys did.
Do you remember what you were feeling at the time when you were just about to ship out to Vietnam, like when it was all about to become real?
Well, I don't remember any sort of feelings. We just went we went by plane, we went by Qantas, and we stopped at Darwin at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And I remember it must have been during the build-up or sometime like that because it was really hot. We stopped again at Singapore, and we had to put on a civilian shirt at Singapore so that we seen that Singapore wasn't involved in any way in the Vietnam conflict. So it was just a funny thing. So from Singapore we went to Ton Son Nhut Airport in Saigon.
Mm. What was the first thing that struck you when you arrived in Vietnam?
Well, the airport was just an amazing place. It was, I think it was the busiest airport in the world at that stage, and there was just military planes everywhere and Americans everywhere because that's where they were. It was a bit stunned, I must admit, but yeah.
Was there a bit of a culture shock when you arrived?
Bit of a culture shock, yeah. And the heat, once again. So, hot and steamy.
So after arriving at Vietnam, what happened then?
I went from Ton Son Nhut to Vung Tau, which is down on the coast, and it was regarded as a Riviera of the southeast in those days, but it didn't really look like that with all the barbed wire down the beaches. We lived in a small living space in this great big tent-like place, just a small, skinny single bed and a metal cabinet and a metal table, no chair. We had communal showers and communal toilets. By that I mean you open the door to the toilets and it's a long bench seat with 6 holes in it. So that's
five-star luxury.
A rude awakening, but this.
Geez, you didn't tell me they put you up in a 5-star hotel.
Well, no, it was 6-hole dunny instead. Yeah. So when we walked around the place, we walked around in shorts and boots, no shirt. We carried a rifle, but no ammunition.
No ammunition, just for show then.
Yeah, well, you're responsible for your rifle, so you kept it with you all the time. Vung Tau was considered it, for example, was a place where people came down from Nui Dat for 5 days rest and recuperation sort of place. They had a centre there for those people to come down, and every one that did their tour had those 5 days, and they also had 5 days of R&R, which you could go offshore or back to Australia for 5 days. So it was regarded as a reasonably safe place.
What were some of your roles and responsibilities while you were in Vung Tau?
I worked in an office that really did sort of auditing type stuff. That was my job. I was given a list of gadgets or widgets and to go and find those in the warehouse and count them and then come back and compare that number with what's on the ledger sheet that should be there. And if it's short, we had to look up something to find out how much they're worth and then work out what how much money we're short in that particular item. Then that ledger sheet went through a big accounting machine that in the office, but the accounting machine was needed to be kept air conditioned, so there was a separate air conditioned room for the accounting machine, not for the blokes. Yeah, so eventually I went into that air conditioned room and operated the accounting machine. I did that for a while.
Being in an air-conditioned room in Vietnam doesn't sound too shabby.
Yeah, I nearly had to put my shirt on. Yeah,
Nearly.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that work that you were doing?
Oh, well, it was fairly boring stuff, but it was you're doing something, you're told to do. I only stayed in Vung Tau for 3 months and then was transferred to Saigon,
Right.
which is the headquarters of Ordnance and the headquarters of a lot of other corps. We're in a 5-storey hotel. It was called a Bachelor Enlisted Men's Quarters. But the old hotel had a steel mesh that went right up to stop things being thrown in, and there was a machine gun post out the front, fully manned. And then where we worked was the Free World building, and it was about 5 stories as well. And then right up the top was the general who was in charge of forces in Vietnam.
Right. How did you feel about being transferred to Saigon?
Yeah, it was okay. When I got there, it was conditions were completely different because we were in old hotel rooms.
So no more 6-hole dunnies?
No more 6-hole dunnies.
Oh.
So, yeah, we
Living luxury.
actually had an ensuite in each room. So, yeah, it was okay.
Air conditioning or not?
No.
No, fair enough. Can't have it all.
But overhead fan. So, yeah, so it was...
Better than nothing.
It was manageable, yeah. So each day we had to travel to what was the Free World building. But that must have been probably 6 or 7 k's away. It might have even been further. And we travelled to that building in a Mark III truck with seats down each side. So there would have been probably 16 to 18 blokes on that truck sitting up there, sitting ducks. They estimated that there was a battalion of Viet Cong in Saigon at any one time. So we went a different route to work each day, trying to outsmart the Viet Cong. It wasn't a safe situation. Because of that, we had fully loaded weapons all the time.
Were you feeling that danger? Were you feeling nervous whenever you were on that drive over, or did you sort of not think about it too much?
It's looking around, it's every day, so, you just sort of get used to that. The Free World building was interesting. It's where the headquarters of the different countries that were involved in Vietnam, like the Philippines, South Korea, United States, New Zealand, Australia, and I might have missed one or two, but you saw those sort of people around the place. So that was interesting.
What sort of jobs were you doing there? Was it similar to what you were doing back at Vung Tau?
Oh no, this was completely different. So this is an office, sitting down, working type job. Part of my job was to go to the signals office and pick up the signals and help to prepare and send the signals as well. Some of those would be confidential, so that was my clearance at that time, confidential. So I'd bring those back to the colonel who was in charge of ordnance in Vietnam. So after a while, I was increased to the secret level and made temporary corporal. So that was pretty much what I was doing there, involved in the to and fro of signals, and they'd be coming from, I can remember the conflict in the Long Highs where 8 Row were, and those signals were coming in about wounded and so forth. So I was there at that time watching that. But that was 6 days a week we did that, and the alternate week was 6.5 days, so every month we got 1 day off. We were there to do the work, that's for sure, yeah.
Did it ever strike you just what sort of impact you really were having? Because obviously you getting these signals back and forth may have seemed a bit abstract in where you were, but did it ever sort of strike you that you were really helping to coordinate where these blokes were going and what they were doing out in the field?
Well, no, I didn't think like that at all. I was just doing that. Maybe it's a matter of maturity or whatever, but I didn't consider that at all. While I was there, I saw, first of all, the Free World building had a set of concrete steps that went up about 5 floors. So anyone that went up higher than where we were, I could see through the window. And I saw Ray Simpson and Keith Payne go past up to the General's office to get their Victoria Crosses.
Yeah, wow.
Those two guys, yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel when you were made a temporary corporal?
Oh, well, it didn't really go to my head. I was only temporary, and I was told that I had to go through this course and do that if I wanted to make it permanent. I wasn't going to bother about doing that, in a few months I'd be home, and I definitely wasn't staying in the army, so if I was inclined to stay in the army, well, maybe I would have done something about it, but no, it was just meant some extra pay, which was good. Yeah.
Still, it's a decent amount of responsibility for someone at a pretty young age, helping to coordinate the efforts of everyone else.
No, that's not really right. I wasn't involved in any decisions or anything. No. I was just a boy. Go and get that and bring it back, sort of thing.
Were there any particular stories that stand out to you during your time there? I know you mentioned seeing the 2 medal winners was a pretty cool moment, but were there any particular stories that stand out?
The captain that was there was a good guy in the office. He was second in charge. He organised out of the blue for me to have a ride in an American chopper, and that was interesting, flying over the paddy fields and the bomb sites, the hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Craters.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the bomb craters. Yeah. So I appreciated that.
Did you get to interact much with the people from the other countries who were all based there?
No, not really. But we had a couple of Vietnamese women working in the office. So obviously they'd been cleared to do that. One of them was used to type up the signals. So that's it's an impregnated form with carbon paper in the middle, and they had to type those up, and it left holes or something in it. She was a typist doing that, and there was one other one doing something else. So,
did you get to know many of the people that you were working with? Were you one of the younger people on station there, or were there a lot of people your age?
Well, the Nashos were all about the same age.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had my 21st in Vung Tau.
Yeah, did you get to celebrate it at all?
Oh, no, just go outside and sit on the deck chairs out on the sand and watch the movie.
Yeah.
That's about all. Yeah, so we're all about the same age. And I still see a couple of those guys that were there.
So you still got to build friendships and
go to the occasional Anzac March in Melbourne and so forth, catch up with them.
Okay, so you still built those bonds even though you weren't maybe necessarily out fighting or anything like that. Yeah.
No.
So you'd made up your mind that you weren't going to be sticking around and you weren't going to be serving any longer than you needed to. Was that something that you'd thought about for a while, or was that something that you only really took into consideration towards the end of your service?
Oh, well, I didn't think about it too much. It was a foregone conclusion, really, just do the 2 years and get out. So when the time came to leave, we came home by Qantas again, a 10-hour flight into Sydney. It was nice to be on that flight.
So you were pretty happy to be getting out of there?
Oh, yeah, yeah. We used to count down the days. We had a funny Julian calendar, it was called, where you could just scratch out the days as they got closer and closer, because you knew your date well in advance that you were coming home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that help to motivate you at all while you were
Oh,
over there?
yeah. It was good.
So you've shipped out, you've come back home. What was it like when you arrived back home?
Well, first of all, I came back into Sydney. That's where reality hit, I think. By the time we got through customs, it was midnight and there was no army presence at all. We'd just been abandoned in Sydney at midnight. And we had to, I had to catch a plane the next day to Melbourne and then another plane to Swan Hill. So it was a long haul to really get home.
When you arrived back home, public opinions of the Vietnam War had, clearly shifted to a degree, and there were a lot of people who returned from Vietnam and found themselves feeling pretty unwelcome. Did you experience that at all, or did you find it okay?
Yeah, I think so. It was hard to settle down, that's for sure. To go back to a bank and just sort of do mundane things in the bank. It was quite difficult to settle down. But I guess I was still sort of in disguise. I didn't know anybody who was a Vietnam veteran, and nobody knew I was. You just didn't say anything. Thinking about it, I think it was a perception that there was an adverse reaction from the public. I'm not sure whether there was or not. I think there was still something there in the public, so you just didn't say that you were a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, so that backlash sort of may have contributed to you not really wanting to talk about being a Vietnam veteran, is that fair to say?
That's right. Yeah, no, you just didn't talk about it.
Did you talk about it at all with your father when you got back home?
No. I suppose I carried on the tradition of not talking about the war. He didn't really ask about it either, to be fair. So, no, we didn't talk about it. We just sort of settled back into life. I think that was the main thing to do, was to settle back and get things back to normal.
Did you find that a challenge?
It was a challenge. I can remember going to work in the bank in Albury and the manager calling me in and saying, "Well, I know how you feel. I was in the war. If you feel like getting up and going out and going for a walk, that's okay. You can do that." So that was something that was I didn't expect. That somebody would understand what I may be going through. I didn't consider myself to be going through anything like that anyway, but it was good of him to recognise that and to
offer the support.
Give me that option. Yeah. Offer support.
Yeah. Well, a lot of Vietnam veterans, it seems like, didn't feel much at all support when they got home, so it's good that at least someone recognised it and reached out, at least.
Yeah.
Right, so you've settled back into life, or tried to settle back into life working at the bank. How did life play out from there?
I settled back in the bank and I stayed in the bank until 1987, and I left the bank and went into financial planning with an accounting firm, and I did that for I think about 15 years, but I had to stop work at 52. I diagnosed with depression and anxiety disorder and eventually ended up TPI.
TPI meaning?
Totally and permanently incapacitated.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of a shock, but it explained a few things.
Was there any relation from that to your time in Vietnam and being a veteran?
Oh yes, it had to be related to that. So the Department of Veterans Affairs has accepted that my depression and anxiety is related to my service. If they didn't accept that, well, I wouldn't be TBI. So
Yeah.
that was accepted as being related to service.
Yeah. So you've had to retire at age 52. What did you do next?
I actually ended up being approached to join an organisation funded by DVA called Training and Information Program. And that's designed to train people who are interested in helping veterans and their families, in other words, becoming advocates for those people. We did training sessions of 2 to 3 day courses, and we might do 4 or 5 of those over a year, just in Victoria. So it wasn't onerous work, but it was quite satisfying to be in contact with these people who were keen to help veterans and their families. It was a really good thing to do. It was very positive. I did that for 20 years, and I always had the feeling that I should try to give back. I don't know what that feeling was. There was a bit of guilt or something, but I don't know. But so I always wanted to do something like that, and I guess I still do. I probably helped a lot of people indirectly by training advocates.
Yeah. I mean, did you get to see, I guess, the material difference that you were making? I mean, you must have seen the difference that these people you were helping to train were making, especially with veterans and their affairs.
Oh, yes, absolutely. The main point was the information, because departments like Veterans Affairs and Centrelink don't actually advertise what they can do for you. So it's all, the information's there, you just have to find it. So that was the point, to help advocates get the information they need to be able to help the veterans. And also we did training in communication and interviewing and so forth, so people need those sorts of skills as well. Yeah, it was good.
Did you find that, especially talking to other veterans, helped you at all?
Yeah, I think, and that's where the Warragul RSL is something special. And I know you were going to ask about that later, but there's these big RSLs around the place, and you know they're big on a meal and poker machines and so forth. But the Warragul RSL is a real RSL, and there are wives, partners, and kids running around, and it's fair income. There's a concentration on mental health and a haven, if you like, so people can walk in there and just relax. It's safe. Nobody's going to stab them in the back, and you can see it in the people there. It's quite interesting, really. They just enjoy themselves there, away from the real world for a while.
So when did you move to the local area?
Must be about 40 odd years ago.
Yeah, okay. And could you tell me a bit about your time with the West Gippsland Veterans Welfare Centre?
Yes, I was with them for about 20 years as well, within the same 20 years. I mostly was involved with the administration part. See a bit of a pattern here. I didn't want to be face to face back in the trenches of helping veterans individually, although I did do some of that, and that's the same as with the training, you know, so just helping the people who are going to directly help veterans. So I was doing a lot of administration. I was treasurer for 20 years and helping out with decisions and so forth.
Of course, that's, as I understand it, that recently closed down the centre?
It has recently closed down, and the main reason for that is that we ran out of advocates. So we didn't have anybody left to see the people.
Sad reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
It seems to be a common theme, you know, talking to people like yourself, that it's just running out of people and manpower. Especially, I mean, you know, you yourself being an advocate trainer, you'd see it firsthand, of course, in the work that you've done for 20 years.
Yeah.
What changes would you like to see to make things easier for veterans when they return home?
Well, I think for the government to get fair to convert the Royal Commission, the recent Royal Commission into suicide death, that'd be a good start.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the Department of Veterans Affairs as a department is sort of a good place for the government to save money because it spends a lot of money. So that has happened in the past and could happen again in the future. And really it needs to go the other way. They need to put more money into helping veterans.
So is it fair to say that, becoming an advocate trainer and joining the Veterans Welfare Centre, given that you were retired at 52, is it fair to say that that sort of gave you a new purpose, I suppose, later in your life?
Yeah, it did. It did. And, it wasn't full on like my old life. And I got to be working with really good people who had their heart in the right place and were really trying to help veterans. So that was a good feeling.
Yeah. Was it confronting at times seeing some of these veterans? I mean, there would have been a lot of difficult cases and difficult things to see in that time, I'm sure. Was it confronting at all?
Yes, well, that's really the reason that I didn't want to be face-to-face, if you like. I would prefer to be sort of one step back and helping in the background. Because of my disabilities, that sort of had the wrong effect on me, so I didn't need any more of that.
I suppose now, 54, 55 years removed from your service, with hindsight, how do you reflect on your time in Vietnam? Because it's sort of a common theme, I think, among the people that we've chatted to, that they say in the moment there was a lot of things that they didn't think about. They had to press on ahead, they had a job to do and whatnot, but obviously in later years those things have affected them in ways that maybe they didn't expect or didn't quite think about at the time. How do you reflect on your time in Vietnam?
It's a life-changing experience, there's no doubt about it. My life changed for sure, having done those 2 years and 1 year in Vietnam. I don't know that I was affected by any trauma. Depression's not the same as PTSD.
Mm.
So, I guess, I've got some good mates out of it. I don't think, if I had a choice, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't go, that's for sure, if I could get out of it.
Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about from your service or post-service, anything at all that we haven't mentioned yet that might be worth discussing?
You did initially put in our notes here, what would I say to my son, sort of thing. Mm. But I would not recommend my son go into the services. There's fundamental problems there that need fixing. If you get broken, you could just get thrown away, pretty much. There's things that need to happen. A lot of big changes need to happen to treat our forces in a better way. So I wouldn't be recommending another generation. We've had 3 generations of non-military families going to war.
So if your child was conscripted as you were, you might have something more to say about it than maybe your father did.
Well, if he's conscripted, he's got to go. Yeah. So, keep your head down.
Yeah.
And just get what you can out of it.
All right. I think that's pretty much everything that we were hoping to touch on. So I want to thank you, Ivan, for coming in today and chatting so openly about your experiences. It's very much appreciated. So thank you very much for your time and thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for the opportunity, Nick.
No worries. The Warragul and Druin Gazette and the Warragul RSL would like to thank our guests for sharing their opinions and recollections of their service in Vietnam. as well as their later experiences after returning back into civilian life.